Are you still quoting 30-year-old movies? Have you said cool beans in the past 90 days? Do you think Discover isn't widely accepted? If this sounds like you, you're stuck in the past. Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. And every time you make a purchase with your card, you automatically earn cash back. Welcome to the now. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/credit card, based on the February 2024 Nielsen report.
Today's show is sponsored by Center County Highway Revolt. Have you ever wanted to take a day trip to a small Pennsylvania town or hike through the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, but don't want to deal with all the traffic, the high gas prices, and windy mountain roads? The Center County Highway Revolt is a citizen-led initiative trying to save farms and forests, combat climate change, and boost small-town economies by building a rail transit network all across the state. And their plan calls for connections to existing Amtrak trains. Learn more and get involved at centercountyhighwayrevolt.org. Today on CityCast Pittsburgh. If there is one all-around icky choice most of us have made, it's whether to show up for work when we're sick or miss out on a paycheck. Slowly but surely, the city of Pittsburgh has been trying to get paid sick time on the books for everyone. It started small a few years ago, and now City Council is poised to give us even more days. 9 if you work for a big company, 6 if you work for a small one. Today, I'm with a local union organizer to talk about how we got here and what he's hoping to see next. It's Monday, June 9th. I'm Megan Harris, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. Sam Williamson is the Pennsylvania director for 32BJ SEIU. Sam, welcome to CityCast Pittsburgh.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And thank you for joining us. I know you're on the road today in New York, but you work in Pittsburgh. You live here. Explain to us what happens if you get sick, if you work in the city right now. What parameters are in play?
Well, thanks to a law that City Council passed about 10 years ago, depending on the size of your employer, workers can earn either up to 3 or up to 5 paid sick days. But that's really, for many workers, the cap. So if you work for a small business, like most people are only earning up to 3 days a year.
Which is just like wildly low.
Yeah, it's totally low. I mean, like one bout of the flu and you're likely to use more than 3 or 5 paid sick days, right? A couple times your kid gets sick and you're kind of screwed, you know? So,
or using like one of your sick days to take like a doctor's appointment or something, which like is a thing a lot of us do.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So when we worked on the original Pittsburgh Paid Sick Days Act back in 2015, there were like 50,000 workers in the city who had 0 paid sick days at that point. So literally every single time they had to go to the doctor for a checkup or got sick or had to like take care of their kids, they had to make a, impossible choice between taking care of themselves or taking care of their kids and like actually looking after themselves or going without pay.
Yeah.
And for like many low wage workers, like that means they miss meals or they can't buy the groceries they need for the week or or they end up being late in their rent or skipping utility bills. And it's, I don't know, like it's not just bad for workers, it's also bad for the city and for public health, because actually what that means is that people just come to work sick.
Which, if, the pandemic taught us anything, is maybe not the greatest thing for like the greater good.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like when we were running that campaign 10 years ago, we had all these public health experts come and testify to city council and say what seems like now, after living through the pandemic, like such obvious common sense, right? Like it's a bad public health decision for the city to have all these workers running around without paid sick days, showing up sick, spreading their contagions to everybody else, especially when like the vast majority of them are in the restaurant industry, right? In the hospitality industry. So city council like responded to that, to that like public pressure, and they passed the Paid Sick Days Act back in 2015, and they set like kind of like 2 different thresholds for what workers can earn. And if you're an employer with fewer than 15 workers, then you have to provide up to 3 paid sick days, and often they're earned based on like how many hours you work per year.
Yeah, the kind of thing where you have to like work a certain amount to accrue that time.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then you can get up to 5 if you have, more than 15 workers. Not just in a single workplace, like not just like in one location, but in the company.
Well, and we should talk about how this is hitting different kinds of folks. Like the restaurant industry, for example, was really against this sick leave law when it was new. So they actually sued over it. There were a bunch of court challenges. It went all the way up to the state Supreme Court, who ruled with the city and said that this sick leave legislation was in the interest of public health. That decision came down in February of 2020. Very timely, right before the COVID shutdowns started here in Pittsburgh. But I mean, even after it gets upheld in court, then there's the implementation piece. And I know that has, its own hurdles.
Yeah, exactly. Well, first, when the law was passed, it got a lot of public, it was like in the news a lot, and it was like got a lot of public attention. And then 5 years passed where it was just a court battle. And so it really hadn't gotten a lot of public attention for a long time. And it's hard to just like flip the switch in the city and like have every employer and every worker know that this is now their obligation and their right. But, it had to do a lot of outreach. We had, the city eventually had to like, work really hard to make sure that employers were adopting the right kinds of policies to be able to comply with the law. And that took years later.
Yeah. Did you find that folks were mostly like amenable to following the letter of the law? Like, there's always like I'm oversimplifying, but it feels like often there's 2 lanes. There's the ones that like just don't know they're supposed to be doing this. So there's the education piece. But then there's the ones that absolutely know they're supposed to be doing this and don't want to.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I think what we found in Pittsburgh is that the vast majority of employers fell into the first bucket.
Yeah.
Really like the sort of more robust attempts to roll this out and like help employers adopt policies that were like clear and easy to understand for their workers, but and also compliant with the law, really like took place in like 2021, 2022, and the Gainey administration did an incredible job of like working with employers, providing sample policies to employers, and got hundreds of employers to adopt compliant paid sick days policies for the first time. And, obviously that's a whole lot better for workers to have some paid sick days than none. But as you said,
that was a win, but now right. we're doing it. Now we're doing it again. What is it about the current policy that you think is worthy now, 10 years later, of amending?
Well, I mean, as you said, like really one of the main things that we learned through the pandemic is that people need to be able to take care of themselves and their family when something bad happens. And that 5 days is just not enough. It's not a reasonable number of days. Like,
did you think that it was 10 years ago, or is it just like we're going to fight the small fight and try to fight the big fight later?
To be honest with you, 10 years ago, like if you looked around the country at cities and states that had similar policies, like 5 was kind of the norm. And
yeah.
That's no longer the case, really. That's no longer the case. I mean,
the pandemic just changed everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cities and states that now have, 8 or 9 days as more the standard. Most employers are providing, like large employers that are giving workers paid sick days on their own, are often providing 9 or 10 days.
And that's what you're asking for now. 10 days for large employers, 6 days for smaller ones. A bunch of your union members talked about this recently at a public hearing, obviously in support of it.
It was so powerful. I mean, it was really incredible to see all these janitors and food service workers and security officers take time out of, their busy days. Really, many of them were like on their way to work or just coming from work and telling these like really intense, emotional, personal stories about their own struggles, even with a union job and even with like a good union contract and 5 paid sick days currently on the books. Like people with really complicated health problems, or dealing with really complicated family health problems, or mental health challenges, right? I mean, like, for people to just like stand up and share that, like make themselves vulnerable like that in order to be able to help the city move forward and help all working people in the city move forward it was really powerful.
And we'll hear from a few of them now. This is from a city council meeting a couple of weeks ago.
Hello, my name is Tiana Wilson. I live in the Carrick neighborhood. I'm a member of SEIU 32BJ.
My name is Luana Adams. I'm a resident of Homestead. I work downtown as a cleaner, and I'm a proud member of SEIU 32BJ.
My name is Theodore Hoffman. I'm a proud member of SEIU 32BJ. I live in the Brentwood neighborhood. I work at the Carnegie Museums in security.
Working as a security guard, I'm the first one to interact as everyone enters the building. I work at 412 Boulevard of the Allies, where the Housing Authority, Zone Board, and Planning Commission holds their public meetings. So if I'm sick, I'm exposing everyone who walks into my building. And believe me, I've come to work sick.
I had to work sick. If I run out of sick days and want to use PTO to recover, that still has to be approved. Workers like me can't just call out and work from home.
We're in a situation where one illness, things like COVID and the flu, can wipe out the entirety of the 5 sick days we have already. That leaves no days left for a doctor appointment, for caring for a sick family member.
Having 9 sick days would help me heal when I'm sick and take care of myself so I don't put my other workers or tenants at risk. Essential workers like me keep Pittsburgh's office buildings, universities, and public spaces clean and running. Please pass this bill to protect workers and make Pittsburgh a healthier city.
This is basic human decency. It's basic public health. And I urge you, please, pass this.
Today's show is supported by Tree Pittsburgh and its STEAM Outside Camp. This summer's adventure runs July 21st through 25th at Tree Pittsburgh's gorgeous little riverside spot in Upper Lawrenceville. It's tucked up there along Butler, nestled next to the Allegheny River, which makes it so perfect for camp activities like paddleboarding. Tree Pittsburgh's STEAM Outside Camp sounds like so much fun. It's geared towards rising 4th through 6th graders and perfect for a budding nature lover. Throughout the week, campers will get the chance to travel through tree time, make tree art, journal, learn about investigative science, commune with nature, and care for trees across their different life cycles. And they'll also be empowered to be lasting stewards of our city's urban green spaces. Spots are limited, so if you have a kiddo in your life, make sure they sign up soon. Register at treepittsburgh.org/camp.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by The Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
So, Sam, City Council gave a preliminary okay for this bill, and they are expected to take a final vote on it tomorrow. If it passes, when do you expect it's going to go into effect?
January 1st is what we're expecting. We're expecting that they'll set the implementation date for January 1st of the new year. And, like that'll be really great because we've seen really over and over again, not just during the sort of heart of the pandemic, but like how many times have we seen really bad flu seasons over the last couple of years, or spikes in COVID, or both happening at the same time, right? Or just life, right? Life is life, and people are struggling, and people have, individual and family challenges that shouldn't have to suppress, and they shouldn't have to ignore in order to be able to also have a job that pays the bills,
Yeah. I mean, do you expect any kind of legal challenge this time? Because there has been, once again, some rebuttal. Well, actually, let that person speak for themselves.
My name is Lauren Brinjack, and I am the Senior Director of Government Affairs for the Pennsylvania Restaurant and Lodging Association. We represent over 600 operators in Allegheny County and nearly 6,000 members across the Commonwealth. In the current business environment, the hospitality industry is operating on razor-thin margins, and these proposed changes will be very challenging in terms of payroll costs as well as hiring, particularly for smaller operations. As I'm sure you know, the hospitality industry is particularly vulnerable to volatility in the economy. And over the last 5 years, from COVID to rising costs across food, labor, supplies, energy, insurance, and other materials, it's been very difficult for many operators to know where their bottom line is going to come from. While the hospitality industry in Pittsburgh is committed to supporting and improving the well-being of the workforce, we're concerned that these proposed changes not only seem unnecessary at this time, but will be detrimental to helping businesses thrive in the city right now.
What do you say to folks that hear this and maybe think like, I don't think the government needs to be regulating this?
Well, they made the same argument in 2015, really, the same folks, and then they sued the city, and then they lost, and then now they're showing up essentially with the same argument that they made unsuccessfully 10 years ago, saying that like government shouldn't have to force employers to do this, and that employers should be free to set their own policies. But like the problem is that if we trust employers to always set their own policies, then workers get screwed and working people fall behind. And sometimes we need to actually step in and set minimums and regulate safety standards and regulate wage conditions. And one of the things that they said during the public hearing was that the current standard has only been in place for a few years, and that the city should let some more time go by and see how people are doing and see how it's going before they raise the standard. And I don't know, to me it feels like it takes a lot of damn gall to like sue the city over a law and delay its implementation literally for years. And then after you lose, show up a couple years later and say, well, but the law's only been in place for a couple of years. This law would have been in place for 10 years had they not unjustifiably sued the city.
Fair enough. But I mean, I guess like to their broader point about it just being like financially challenging, right? For like small businesses to a lot for this. What's your rebuttal to that?
Well, two things, maybe three. One, like generally speaking, workers don't there's almost no evidence that workers are abusing this policy. People take sick days when they actually are sick. Otherwise, people generally want to show up at work and get paid and do their jobs. So that means that like they only have to pay out these days if people are legitimately sick. There is, at the same time, plenty of evidence that providing workers with paid sick days and, frankly, other meaningful benefits lowers turnover, increases retention, keeps people on the job, keeps people loyal to their employers. And that's an enormous cost savings in the long run. So, like, keeping workers around who know their businesses and are committed to them is more valuable than the frankly minimal cost of actually giving people a little bit of paid sick time. Like if you're a small business and you have 5 workers and you're going to have to pay them an extra 3 days, even if every single one of your employees takes all 3 of those extra sick days, if you're paying them $15 an hour, it's a grand total of $1,800 a year in additional wages. So it's not a lot of money that we're talking about.
Do you expect court challenges again? Like, do you think that we're going to go down this path a second time?
I don't, because it's, the Supreme Court decision is so clear and they're not really changing the substance of it. They're just changing the number. They're not like deviating from the norm, right? We're not, part of the reason it's 9 and not 10 or 11 or, it's not like or 15 or whatever is that 9, there's precedent for 9. 9 exists as, in a bunch of cities and states already. And so we're not like blazing new territory or something.
We're not innovating. That's not the Pennsylvania way.
Yeah, right. No, we're not. We're just catching up. So anyway, I don't think that there's, who knows? Maybe somebody will sue, but I can't imagine that it would be a legitimate legal challenge and that it would actually that anything will be threatened. So.
Heard. What would you say to someone who's hearing this and thinking like, I don't know if I've ever been offered this. I didn't know this was even available to me. How would you recommend folks like learn more about this? What's on the table, and also like maybe how to plug in if it's something that they're interested in?
Well, I would encourage folks to call or email their council members and express their support. If there are workers whose employers don't have paid sick day policies, or they're not sure if they have a paid sick day policy, they should ask. They should ask their employer. Like I heard on the radio that if this applies to every worker in the city of Pittsburgh, and frankly Allegheny County also has a similar ordinance. So really every employer in Allegheny County is supposed to be providing these kinds of paid sick days. So people should ask their bosses, like, what's up? Do we have a policy? And if they don't, then the city's Office of Equal Protection has been really great at helping both workers and employers make sure that this is being implemented and workers get what they deserve. Yeah. And if those don't sound like good options, then call a union.
Call 32BJ.
That's right.
Sam, thank you so much once again for making time in your busy schedule, your travel schedule. I hope you have a safe trip back to Pennsylvania.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
That is all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you think that your employer maybe isn't following the existing rules about paid sick time, consider checking in with the city's Commission on Human Relations. We did an episode with them a couple of months ago talking about what's involved if you try to speak up, because they will get in touch with your employer and try to gently explain to them what the rules are and how to make things right. And they will protect you if anything goes sideways. We will link to that in our show notes. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.
Like, as the pandemic was...
Sam, it sounds like your environment is like building to this crescendo. Like it's like the space you're in is like, this is an emergency as Sam is talking.
Yeah. I'm sitting here in our Manhattan office and it's really loud. So sorry for the background noise.
No, it's totally fine.